Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers,
Well, hello again, and welcome to episode 127 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm your host, Michael McCall, and we're going to be bringing you a special WFC2 end of season podcast this episode. So if you were listening to last episode, 126, you'll know that the USL season wrapped up on Sunday. WFC2 suffered an agonising 3-2 defeat, losing a 2-goal lead in the second half to Austin Aztecs, finishing the season second bottom. But all in all, a good first inaugural season, getting some of the younger players in the Whitecaps development system some key minutes going forward, and giving a number of them something to build upon next season. So after the game on Sunday, my regular co-host Steve Pander and myself were joined by Curva Collective's Zachary Meisenheimer, just to have a quick roundtable discussion about the WFC2 season, some of the highs, some of the lows, and some of the players that kind of stood out and maybe pushing to make the grade at the MLS first team. So we're going to be bringing you that shortly. Now, on our last episode of the podcast, we had Alan Koch just giving a quick rundown on his thoughts on the first season for WFC2. So for those of you that missed it, or for those that heard it and just want a quick recap, here's what Alan Koch had to say.
Yeah, it's definitely a success. So obviously, the number of individuals within our group that have grown immensely during the course of the season is a resounding success. Obviously, we're trying to balance development and trying to win some games, and today was a great snapshot of what our season's been like. Play good football, scored 2 fantastic goals by Brett Levi's, could have scored a few other ones, and then obviously some momentary lapses, and we concede 3 goals and we lose the game. But positives, we're playing good football within the club model, and positives, we played 2 other teenagers again today they got 30 minutes in today's game. So fantastic opportunities for them.
Coach, this is kind of a challenging position to be in. Is it safe to say you've learned a few things over the course of the year?
Yeah, patience probably is one of the biggest things. This is development, obviously, so it takes time. It takes time to develop individual players. It takes time to build a team. Obviously, the makeup of being essentially our club's reserve team, it's been continually changing. But yeah, learned a lot, and I think our entire group has learned a lot, which will hopefully help us be better next year. I think it's something more as a club that we need to address. Obviously, our first team's had fantastic results this year and won a lot of games. But we'll obviously have to adjust a couple of positional needs that we need as a club because we have players that get loaned down from the MLS team. But then we'll also have to make a couple of key USL acquisitions so we have the right players in certain positions. Well, we've got a lot of young players, and hopefully we're going to retain a lot of these young players, which is great, so we can continue to mold them into the type of players we want them to be. We definitely need 1 or 2 of the right experienced players, and we've got a few months obviously to address that over the off-season.
How has the season shaped you as a coach, going through this for the first time?
Good question. I'm used to winning, so it's been. I mentioned patience. That's been my biggest challenge. Obviously, is we're having to balance things, and it's been a growing and learning experience as we've gone along. I feel like I've learned. I feel like our players have learned. I feel like our WFC2 group have grown and got better. I think our on-field product has got better as we've gone throughout the season, and I think it's going to be nice now for us to reflect on the successes, reflect on the areas that we need to adjust and make sure we're better with them, so we can continue to move forward in the right direction next year.
Obviously, you were talking about next year, but what's the next step for them this year? Is there going to be any post-season training? Are you going to keep the guys around and work on some stuff and keep kind of the chemistry going on?
Yeah, I think we're going to definitely train. We're going to train for the next few months, I think, which is going to be great because it gives us actually an opportunity now to actually focus on addressing individual needs. When you roll from game to game, a lot of the time you're just preparing the team to make sure you get yourself ready for that game. Now we can actually have chats with the players and look at certain things and say, hey, you need to work on this. But thankfully we've got the next 2 months to actually address those things, which will make them better come next preseason.
The 3 young players that were recently signed, what have, in the few games you've seen of them, what have you seen out of them? And they're obviously going to go back to residency. What can they improve on during there and bring back to the residency?
Yeah, great opportunity, obviously, for them coming and earn professional playing minutes. And I think today was a great snapshot of the step between playing youth football and stepping into a professional team. I don't think Tommy and Caden did badly by any means. Today was a good development opportunity for them, but they got another taste of it, and hopefully they can grow from that. I know Taryn went away with the residency team this weekend. I haven't chatted with any of the technical staff yet to see how he did, but they've got to realize that they've got to work hard there so that when they come back to us next pre-season, they're going to be ready to make the jump up. And that doesn't just go for them, that goes for all the other lads in the residency team. We're continually looking at them, we're continually evaluating them to see who are the right guys that are deserving of these opportunities so we can push them up into this environment and hopefully push as many of them as we can up into the MLS.
So some of the thoughts from Alan Koch there about the WFC2's inaugural season. I also had a chance to catch up with Robbo at training on Monday just to kind of get some of his thoughts on how he feels the first season for the team went. Was it what he was hoping for? And what lessons that he may have learned taken into next year for how best to use the team. So here's some thoughts now from Carl Robinson.
The USL season wrapped up yesterday. What do you make of how the season's been for the team? And what have you learned from it moving into next season?
Well, I've learned a lot how important it is for the first team that we have a platform there that players can play. You know, at the start of the season, Timmy Parker played a lot of games, Kian's played a lot of games, Davy Flores played in games, Bustos, Benny Mack. You know, it's helped his growth and development. Unfortunately, he's got injured at the moment, but so that's an important aspect of it. You know, sometimes you get caught up in results, and that's going to be the big $1 million question for us as a club. Is, you know, we didn't qualify for the playoffs, but the intention, you know, and don't misquote me on this, is about development. It's not about whether we can get in the playoffs. We'd like to get in the playoffs, and that'll be an aim and goal, but it's about getting young players games and young players through the system. And, you know, it's finding that balance, because there's a number of teams that do that, or, you know, spend more money than us doing certain things and look for playoffs. And we won't change what our philosophy is and our end goal is, and that is to develop players, develop young Canadian players through these programs. And unfortunately, with that, you're going to get young, inexperienced results like we did on Saturday. We got 2-0 up, we put 2 16, 17-year-olds on and we lose 3-2. It's not their fault. They played very well when they come on, Tommy and Caden. So, you know, it is what it is in relation to that. So, you know, if there's any unhappiness, just come and blame me, no problem.
So the thoughts there of both Whitecaps coaches that had a big input into WFC2 this year. Now it's time for our thoughts. So as I say, we're going to move to our roundtable discussion. Steve has to leave halfway through, so we're joined for the first time in the podcast by AFTN photographer Tom Ewasiuk. So lots of chat, lots of thought, lots of opinions, so let's get to that now. So as we said, we recorded this podcast at the last WFC2 game of the season. We've come inside now. You can probably get echo now instead of wind and crowd noise, but hey, it's outside broadcast. What do you expect?
Don't say we don't provide variety.
Yeah, variety is the spice of life, and I think we've had a lot of variety in the WFC2 team this season. What we're going to do now, we are joined by head honcho of Curva Collective, Zachary Meisenheimer.
Hello, Michael.
So we're just going to do a very quick overview of the WFC2 season. Was it worthwhile? I think we can agree, yeah. But it's like, what were the highs, what were the lows, what can we take out of it, and what should this club need to do moving forward? So I know Zach's got a lot of things he wants to say about this, so let's kick things off with Zach.
I thought you were saying Steve. I thought so you were going to do it too, actually. I think that there's lots of different things to break down for WFC2. When we're talking about on the pitch, I think it served the purpose within our club that I think we all longed for it too. I think we have a quality person in Alan Koch. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his last name, but I think Alan is a quality football person who came in with a good reputation, and I think he extended that reputation in his first year. I think that the way he put together the team and dealt with the various hands that he was dealt, or the way he worked through the different players he was given and asked to bring into the team. I think he did a really great job. So I think, like, on the pitch, I think, we had an opportunity for players to get minutes, from our residency to a number of first-team players and who are on loan for the season and whatever, opportunities to develop, to play in obviously a higher level than PDL like in the past. And so I think for me on that, I think that's the most important thing. Results were results. I don't think anyone was overly surprised, except for maybe that we ended up so far down the table maybe, but I don't think too many supporters are, anxious about the results of the first year.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm anxious, but I did want the team to win.
Oh, everyone wanted the team.
Yeah, I do feel as well, though, when you're charging money for a product, then you have to, it's not just about development, it is about results and it's about winning. And Alan, we've spoken to Alan, it's like development's a key factor, the key factor, but he also wanted the results.
No, I mean, you're bringing into other elements of the WFC conversation. I agree with you. You forget about the charging people to attend the matches. I think you as a club, and when you sit down with people and you talk, what do you want your club to be? The primary thing is not about, we're this or that or whatever. You want to be a club that wins. You want to be a club that's victorious. So I think I appreciated that about Alan's comments throughout the year, that he recognized that the high priority on results, while at the same time also bringing players through. And so, I think the results are maybe not surprising, but are disappointing and disheartening that WCF2 doesn't start with kind of like a winning culture in its first year. But I think that the way in which players were brought through or began to brought through our club, I think that for me outweighs the fact that we didn't get the results that we all would have hoped for.
I think one of the biggest highs, especially long term, is going to be proved to be the Marco Bustos introduction into the team and his emergence and everything. Essentially, he's played so well. And then also, obviously, the three newcomers that came in through residency that were signed late, all three have made their debuts. Taryn Campbell, the big, strong winger who can play striker as well. You had Caden Chung, who really impressed when he came on in his first couple of games. And then Thomas Gardner, who a lot of people, like me and Michael, were surprised that he got signed because he had such an injury-filled season, but the Whitecaps are very high on him. So all three of those guys, bringing those guys in shows how valuable WFC2 is.
I totally agree with you. Like when you talk about the guys who played minutes this year, and even if they weren't huge minutes, it's really exciting and really, really encouraging. So the guys at the end of the year, the residency guys, the 17-year-olds or whatever at the end of the year were huge. Caden Chung, when he came on in that game and almost scored, when he broke through the right side and probably should have shot last game. It was very, very exciting. You guys can't see this, but right now Steve and Michael are posing for photos, and so they look quite ridiculous. But no, so those younger guys coming through. But then to me, it's also, I know Mitch had a horrendous year with injury and stuff, but we would have longed for him to play more, I think. I personally longed for him to play more. I really wish he would have been playing.
When he was starting to get picking up, he got injured.
Totally. When he wasn't injured, he was playing every game, most game matches, the full game.
Christian Dean with his experience, he got big experience. That helped him.
But non-first team players, I'm talking about. So Jackson Farmer. So he had nowhere in the past. he would have nowhere to go other than university or a lower league Europe or lower league here in North America or whatever. And so now he had that opportunity to stay within the club. Marco Carducci, who I wish he had played more personally. I don't know fully where things are at, because I know he's always like here, there, this national team, but I really wish, like even today, I was kind of hoping he was going to be the guy today, but I guess maybe, it's been great for those players. And then the MLS players, McKendry, Caleb, who, I don't know, man. Like, he is so talented, and he's talented. He has the tools. I wonder, with him having experienced what he's experienced, if it's the level that maybe seems like he's sometimes a little bit less engaged than we've seen him in the past. Because to me, Caleb Clark can still make the breakthrough, if you will. The way. I mean, how many goals did he have this year? 7? Was 6, 7? 7. So, like,
I think he finished top two.
If you're going to ask how many goals, you got to do the chant first.
Right.
Then you could do
Exactly. So he has 7 goals, and everyone's like, "Oh,
top scorer of a boosty."
Yeah, exactly. So everyone's like, "Oh, we expect more." But then again, he's also one of the most meaningful goal scorers in the side, right? So I think because we all saw him score so many goals at the youth levels, that we just long for that to happen. And we even saw on his time in Germany, he was scoring and setting up goals at I would say a higher level than USL personally. So I would long for him to be an option for our first team in the years to come, and I still hope he'll make that breakthrough, even though I know some people have expressed concern over his year in USL.
I still have doubts that he is MLS quality. There's rumours floating about that he wants to go back to Germany as well, so we'll see if he's even remains with the club next year.
And I was surprised. To be honest, I was shocked. I still remember the day we showed up for a meeting. One time, and he was there to sign extend his deal or whatever. And I was surprised. I was surprised that he was not already going back to Germany. But maybe he needed that time away from there to show that he was fully recovered from his injury. And now maybe he does have the opportunity to go back.
I mean, he has the skills. He's got those goals this season. I was a little bit disappointed with Mackenzie Pridham because I was so high on him going into this season. And everyone was laughing because I was going on so much about he was going to be the starting striker. He was so good, and did he even get a goal this year? I don't even think he did. Well, he got one today, but it got ruled out. But
he scored 4 goals in that one game, and you've been living off that ever since.
Yeah, it was against SFU, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I think it was. I was also disappointed with a little bit how he was used and stuff, but I didn't watch training, so.
But I've been a little bit disappointed with just how the team's been used in general. And I know it's all about getting players minutes. I just feel when you're chopping and changing the starting lineup as much as we were, they're not going to get any consistency. And we talked about this before. The teams played better when they didn't have the MLS loanee guys coming down. I'm not talking about the Bustos, McKendrys, those guys. I'm talking about the other guys coming down. Diego Rodriguez. Tim Part and Christian Dean did not bad, but when you consider that we scored a lot of goals, our defence was terrible, and there's no sugarcoating that. Yes. Our defence was terrible, and giving up a 2-goal lead today, the way that they gave that up, it doesn't bode well for any of these guys making the cut as defenders.
No. And so I felt bad for Jackson on that. Yeah, I was talking to someone recently with a vested interest in all this, and was just like, going forward we're great, but as soon as we lose the ball, we're bound to give up some goals. When you talk about giving the consistency thing, I think that hurts the players at the back far more than it does the attacking players.
Oh, totally, yeah.
So when you. I just took Steve's point, so that's good. When you have that inconsistency, and we did. When you have 5 center backs that you're trying to get time from the first team, some of them are gonna end up playing in your second team, and so. One of the bigger conversations around all this that some people in our country like to have is what are we actually doing as a club? And to be on, should we be allowing more older players and whatever be involved, or should it all be for example, Montreal, all be mostly residency and really crazy young prospects and whatever? And to be honest, I'm kind of happy with how we've done it. I think you need to have this. You need to have this opportunity you need to have, earlier in the year, Robert Earnshaw to come down and just get one game to get match fit. maybe that wasn't meaningful in the course of the whole season, but like, you need to have that kind of thing. My one question for you guys, or maybe you've already talked about this, but I question a little bit of definitely not Tyler Roseland, but I question so many of the seemingly veteran signings or guys in the squad who so you talk about Mac Purdom, Billy
Ian Christensen.
Yes, those guys exactly.
You guys see more.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing against them. I wonder, especially with Billy, who did set up goals, who did score some goals, whatever. Like he contributed, no question. I don't question that. But would that time not be more beneficial for a Mac Purdom or someone else?
Well, when you looked at the team didn't make the playoffs, and they were in with a shout for the playoffs up to the last few weeks. But yeah, you would think, are those guys ever going to sign for the Whitecaps in MLS? Yeah. No.
And you do need some of them. That's why, I really appreciate we brought in Tyler Roseland. He's a local guy. He's played in the league. He's played in MLS a little bit. I think has proved to be like a good leader for that. But I feel like there was probably too many of those kind of players as opposed to like the left back they just brought in, the New Zealand guy.
Declan.
Yeah, Declan. So to me, he's younger, and there's a chance that we're actually looking at him. Yeah. Where like Christensen and Billy,
they're mid-20s and they're basically
they're USL player. So my question is, how many of those players do we need? So if we get,
obviously I like Wynn because he's not Canadian.
Are you trying to speak into other narratives that people in our country like to have? No, so that's one of my questions is, as we look at what we're going to do next year, I don't know what these contracts are, but I should assume they're all, like back in the day, USL day, they're all like 1 year plus options. So that would be more my concern is, if they're happy with how things went this year, aside from maybe getting more results, then I would say, let's move forward with more of our own players, or more of players that we think have a bigger opportunity. You need some Tyler Roselands, like people like that who are going to contribute, provide leadership, and provide some quality on the pitch. But I think we had a few too many of them. But that does help with that whole consistency thing. So it's like a two-sided coin, right? But yeah.
Also, Rosenlund knows the league because he's
Rochester.
Been with Rochester for umpteen years. So Steve, you've not said very much so far. So let's hear your thoughts on all this. And also, you spoke to Alan, as we heard there after the match, so you can kind of touch on what he said.
Yeah, he was basically talking about like he's used to winning, and he wanted to win, even though he had these players in going up and down and everything like that. And I think next year they want to maintain a lot of the young players. Obviously, he reiterated that, and basically wanted to bring it in. He wants to be more consistent with people going up and down and everything like that. And he's hoping the schedule works better for them next year too. Because scheduling, it messes it up a little bit when you don't know what's going on from the day before.
Scheduling was a difficult thing. As a supporter, schedule was not enjoyable.
There was also the problem as well that as coach of this team, Alan didn't know a lot of the time like what MLS players he was going to get in. And because some of the players may have played on the Saturday for the doubleheader, the two home doubleheaders, he might have got them on the Sunday, but it all depended on whether they were going to play and get minutes on the Saturday, and it's just really, really difficult. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. This team primarily was sanctioned by the CSA, along with Toronto and Montreal, to bring forward the development of homegrown young Canadian talent. And let's be honest, the best player, the player that shone through most, that doesn't have an MLS contract already, is Spanish, Victor Blasco. It does look like Carroll is wanting to see more of him. He has been a little bit inconsistent this season, but it looks like Carroll wants to see what he can do and might bring him into pre-season training camp, just to have a look at him for a number of weeks. He's trained with the first team a couple of times so far, and for me, he was the shining light apart from like Bustos and McKendry, as mentioned, but from the guys that don't have MLS contracts, for the guys that's pushing to try and make the breakthrough up to the MLS team, for me, Blasco was the only guy that's really put himself in the frame for moving up to that level.
Yeah, I think you're right. Victor has been, the consistency has been a bit of an issue, but I think there's enough there, and I think that would be wise if they looked at him, and because of course we're gonna have 3 to 5 draft picks again, to come in. And there's obviously going to be new players coming in January, February, and March next year. And who knows how things are going to shake down. There are players who I hope will continue in WFC2 from our club. That again, the Mitches, the Jacksons, those kind of players, because I hope that they'll be able to continue to progress. Hopefully, getting more consistent playing time and whatnot. So I think you're right. Victor is probably the standout non-MLS signed player. It was nice to see Brett today, in a return from injury that was last week or the week before. And
I think if he hadn't got injured, he would have been pushing possibly for that as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Robbo has a look at him as well in pre-season camp.
Yes. My only question would be, I know he scored a couple goals earlier in the year. My only question would be is, again, consistency, because and who you're scoring against and the situation you're scoring, right? So he scores 2 today. It's a meaningless game for us. It's a meaningless game for them. It's kind of, it's not a, it's almost like a friendly in a sense. But again, to me, I don't know. What do you think, Michael? I really think that I think that to me, Marco Carducci should be playing almost every game here. That doesn't interfere with national team call-ups and whatever. Sure, you'll have draft picks and whatever and that kind of stuff, but how did you feel about that?
I actually wasn't too upset by it. I like Marco. I think he's got a great future, but having seen Spencer Ritchie pre-season training a lot, to me, Ritchie won the starting role. But Alan wanted to rotate them, and obviously Paolo Tornagi's come down and played a couple of games. I just think right now in their careers, Ritchie is the better keeper. Now, obviously, Marco is not going to develop if he isn't playing minutes.
What's the age difference, though?
I think Spencer's 23, Marco's 18, 19 now. I liked them rotating them, but at the same time, I think it would have been better to have a couple of games at a time as opposed to game in, game out, game in, game out. And I feel like that for all the guys. Like Craig Nitty. I quite like what I saw from Nitty, and I'd like to see him back here next year. But how can a player like that develop? And he's in 1 week, he's out the next week, he's in again, he's out again. It's like you just can't develop.
Season, I agree with you on that. I guess I think Spencer was fine. I have nothing against him. I just long to see Marco Carducci continue to progress in his development as much as possible. And I think those matches for Paulo, I think, were helpful, meaningful. I know some of them were frustrating or whatever, like the opener, for example, was, a difficult one, the first game in Seattle and stuff, but I think they were helpful to get him ready for the Voyageurs Cup and for CONCACAF Champions League. And I think they were, so the bigger picture, those are, again, that's the kind of way you want to use this team, right? To help the first team, but also to develop players.
Now, in this round table rotation, Steve has departed at the moment, and we're now joined by podcast debutant, AFTN photographer, Tom Ewasiuk. And Tom, you've seen a lot of the USL. We've been at all the games this year, from pitch level. What have you made of this season and just what we've been talking about so far?
I wanted to follow up on Zach's comments on goalkeeping. The most important thing that I saw was getting Paolo Tornagi into the club as a keeper, as opposed to a squad player, somebody who trains well every week, who works well with the guys, but actually gets to command them on the field. And I think when he came in, the first game that I saw him come in, he looked primed for it, he looked ready for it, he took control, and I thought that was an important touch. Overall, though, I think I consider this season middling at best. I was impressed with some of the kids that came through. I was not overly impressed with most of the veterans that they signed. Pridham did not do what I think he was supposed to do, and that was unfortunate. He did not give up the ball when he was on, but he did not score those big goals that we thought he was going to. I thought Rosenlund was excellent all year long, though. I thought he gave leadership. On the field, you could hear him working the referees as only a veteran can. He was vocal and vulgar at the same time. I think overall, in terms of going forward, midfield forward, the young kids showed that they have the most talent in this group. I really was surprised at how good those the midfielders, the offensive midfielders, actually got forward. Were quick on the ball, quick to pass, quick to get open.
The thing with the goalkeeping as well, though, it's hard to kind of judge any of them because of the defence that was in front of them, and just they leaked so many goals. But I think we've pretty much covered how the season's done. So we've talked about the on-field stuff. Just a couple of quick things just about the off-field stuff. Logistics, first of all, getting to UBC, giant pain in the ass. Crowds were actually better than what I expected. I don't think they were as good as what the Whitecaps were expecting. They'll tell you that they were, and they'll tell you that they're happy with them. Every crowd in the 4 figures at least. But as long as you're playing at UBC, you're not going to get people out.
Yeah, I think the location is. First off, I'll say I greatly appreciate Lisa Marcamarai from the Whitecaps front office, who's one of the people responsible for overseeing WFC2, and I think she's done a great job, and she's great to work with. But yeah, I think location is not good for anyone. I don't know anyone who's like, oh yay, I get to go to UBC 40 times or whatever, or this, unless you live here or whatever, you live very close, or you like driving or biking or whatever. No, I think that's been a major frustration, and that I don't know if they have a plan. I don't know if they're happy with this. I don't know what they're going to do going forward. But if they keep it here, I don't expect them. I don't think they can expect anything better than what they got in terms of support and people coming here. I think those numbers too, as you talked about in the past, I think are not real numbers. They're ticket sale numbers. So that doesn't, there's probably been an average of 400 to 750 people here for games, which is, again, it's not terrible, but it's not what it could be in a community.
It doesn't look very good though on the TV.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been here, so I haven't watched that, so I haven't seen that. But
Scottish third division,
we draw about 800.
So not as good.
People in their seats.
Not as good as East 5, but yeah, no. So I think that's been very difficult, but I think these are the growing pains of our club as we go and we keep on adding these things. So I think this year hopefully we learn lessons and we're able to progress and move forward in terms of what's needed on that side of WFC2. I think so I think they recognize that. They've done it with the season ticket memberships or whatever, where they've lowered the price and they're giving everyone tickets and all that kind of stuff. So
I just wanted to say something about the actual stadium. This is a cozy stadium. You are far away from the field, but I actually like the architecture. It's old.
Do you know what cozy means? Because I was freezing today.
It's because it's cold out today.
So it's not cozy.
But I think overall, this is a neat little stadium, and I do like this place. That being said,
are you alumni?
No.
Okay.
But that being said, it is about as far away from everywhere as possible. Yeah. I mean, you could go to Salt Spring Island, I suppose.
One last thing I want to touch upon, though, is also the media coverage. It was non-existent. Apart from ourselves at AFTN and the From the Backline guys, nobody cared. Nobody really came out to the games. It is a hard sell for the media, who maybe don't have a lot of room even to cover the Whitecaps first team in their stuff. But you've got no one really coming out and giving this team publicity. And if you don't have people giving the team publicity, writing pieces about the players, 24 did a little bit towards the end of the season, but if you've not got that happening, then folk just aren't going to be coming out to watch this. And I don't know, it might change next year, but we'll see. But I think let's wrap it up for now. So just before we go, let's just let everyone know where they can find you online. So Zach.
It's Zachary AM on Twitter, and the movement that I'm a part of is Curva Collective.
My name is Tom Ewasiuk, and you can find me at Residual Image.
So I hope you enjoyed this special WFC2 end of season podcast. The chat from the coaches, the chat from us at the round table. Always good to hear your thoughts on the season, who stood out, who didn't stand out, what you're expecting from the team next season, your thoughts of the team being at UBC going forward, anything you want to share at all, get in touch with us. Send us an email to aftncanada@hotmail.com or send us some thoughts on Twitter @AFTNCanada. So until next time on the podcast, I've been your host, Michael McCall. As mentioned, you can find me on Twitter @AFTNCanada. You can also read all our stuff away from the numbers, aftn.ca. I'm also the Whitecaps beat reporter for MLSsoccer.com, so you can read all my stuff on that. But until next time, thanks for listening, take care, and as always, mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.